Hey, good morning, everybody. Just wanted to capture a few things on video. We have just released the Edmonton FIR sector file update to AIRAC 1905. A couple of interesting things came through on this release, mainly when it pertains to Calgary arrivals. That's CYYC. And we have incorporated those changes into our sector file, that latest release that is already out there for downloading. And just wanted to quickly go through a couple of things to make sure that you're all able to extract the most out of the sector file and the different features that we include within it. And taking the opportunity as well to take a quick look at those changes that came through for those arrivals into Calgary, as it is definitely adding not complexity, but it is changing a bit how those arrivals are handled, and mainly when you take a deeper look into it and do the comparison between the jet aircraft and the turboprops. There are a couple of interesting things that are definitely there for the looks of it, without having inside knowledge from VATCAN. It definitely looks like the intent behind that is to again just to make it a more efficient, reach a more efficient management of the air traffic control and those arrivals into Calgary. So what I've done is that I have opened the flightplan.com window on a separate window here. So I will just drag it into place. For the most part, what I wanted to go through it first is showing you a couple of things. So here I opened up. This is the Edmonton Center ASR. I will open up the arrivals into Calgary, and these ones here are here because I have worked with them in the past couple of sessions that I have run Euroscope, and these are the ASRs that come down with the file package. If you download the full download package, you will see these ASRs. There's another training out there or another session that can take you through how to make your own ASRs. So just to take you to a couple of things quickly, I'll open up the ASR that shows us the window that is set up for arrivals into Calgary when you have the 17s active. This is one of the first windows that come up, and this is coming up because I just updated my sector file, so this is normal. Every time that the system notices that you have a new sector file, it will prompt you and letting you know that, well, it didn't find 1903. The reason behind this is because every time I update the sector file on my folders, I completely remove the previous version from that folder and move it into either a superseded folder or a backup folder. Hence, when Euroscope runs and it tries to search for the previous one, the one that this specific ASR was using as active sector file, then it prompts you because he didn't find it. As I had already told Euroscope to use the latest release as the active one, that's what it's asking me here. So when it reads sector file not found, do you want to use the active sector file? As I know that I have already set up my active file being the 1905 release, then I click yes, and it takes me into the Calgary arrival ASR for 17s. If you scroll out a bit, you'll see a few things here. So based on the changes that I have done, this window doesn't necessarily look like the window I had and the ASR I had before I went through the release. And this is going to happen with releases if I end up tweaking things a bit, and I tend to do that, and I apologize for that, guys, if it causes some grief. But mainly it's as I go through the editing of the sector file, I try to continue to find efficiencies, and it's not to say that it's the only way of doing it. It's just an idea of trying to get things a little bit better positioned and allowing all of you guys, all the controllers for Edmonton, to be able to easily go through all the information we have. So what did I do here? So I went to the display settings dialog box. You can get to it, as you know, either by clicking this shortcut here. Quickly, it opens that up, or if you go to other settings and the display settings dialog box takes you to the same window. So a couple of things here. So every time there's a change, In this case, the changes were mainly around the stars, so the stars are going to be affected, and that's why you don't see the stars here, or the lines are not drawn for the stars into Calgary for the 1.7s. So I want to get them back on. That's your preference. I personally like keeping them on because it allows me to track the path of the aircraft as they're coming down. To me, that's one of the more critical pieces of information here. So if you expand the stars subfolder here, or the list, the drop-down list for the stars, and scroll down and look for Calgary, you'll see that we have them all them, and the only thing I need to do is that what I will do here is that I will activate all the ones that are relative to 1.7s. So the 1.7s, I have the ADVOC 7 now, we have the Virco 7, we have the EPGAL 5. What else? We have the FLAM 6. This is already for a turboprop. I'll activate it anyway. They're pretty much the same, so you won't see any difference, but I want to get them on. The EQUIC 5. We also have the CZEG, which is also for turboprops, and tow tube. This is for turboprops as well, and as well as the VESGA turboprops. So very quickly there, we know that the VESGA, the tow tube, the CZEG, and FLAM are turboprop arrivals. They follow the same path as the one for jet aircraft. The differences are with altitude restrictions, and the ones for jet aircraft are the ADVOC 7. This is from the northwest. This one here with ADVOCs. We also have the Virco 4. Virco 4 comes from the northeast. Virco arrives through this path here in Virco. We have the IGVEB. That's the one that comes from the southwest through Norred and then through IGVEB. And the last one is the EPGAL 5, that comes from the southeast through EPGAL into the approaches airspace. So as I selected all those ones, again, I clicked on the stars ones and then I hit apply. Now I see what I want to see, and this is what I was referring to. We had previously incorporated not only the paths with a different color, but you have the hold. These are the published holds for each one of those, allowing you to very easily have that visual cue on knowing, for controlling purposes as deemed required, you know that this is a published hold, so the holding clearance for a given aircraft is significantly easier if you're using the published holds, hence the reason why they are there. And perhaps touching into some of the training stuff that you may have gone through if you are an S3 or you're training for S3 or up into C1 and center controller, is that the Calgary approach airspace is different from the Edmonton one, because in this case, as you can see, the holes are, all of them are outside of the approach's airspace. So all these holes are actually to be managed by the center controller on duty, and it is therefore center controller's responsibility to start releasing those aircrafts out of the hold and to resume their descent through the arrival paths into Calgary, depending on the coordination with the approach controller. Edmonton airspace is slightly different, because Edmonton approach airspace does have some holes within its control airspace, but not in the case of Calgary. So anyway, I have activated all that. The reason why I didn't go through that, but the reason why I see the waypoints here also, is because I had previously activated them, and none of those waypoints really changed from, or experienced any changes from by uploading the latest database from the AIRAC 1905, so that's why they're still active. But similarly, if you want to remove fixes, you don't want to see them, you just go to the fixes, you expand it, and then you look for the fixes you want to hide or show, and do pretty much the same. So that's one thing. And the other cool thing, or very useful piece of information that we have added, is that if you go to free text and expand on free text and scroll down to Calgary, you'll see a few more that need to be activated as well. And it is your prerogative, depending on how you want to have your scope displayed. But in my case, I want to see all this information, and you'll see what this is about. And this is what one of the main intents of this video today is to show you a couple of pieces of information that are very useful for the approach controllers and center controllers as well. So I just activated all those. As you can see, this is Calgary for the advox and FLAM combination, and then for the Virco and toe tube for the EBGAL and TIDUC, for IGWEB, VESGA, and that's pretty much it. Of course, because you have 4 streams that are coming from each one of the main coordinates into Calgary. And the reason why they are combined this way is, as I have mentioned already previously in this video, is because the paths are exactly the same. Doesn't really matter if you're a jet aircraft or a turboprop, you are going to follow the same path. The only thing that changes are the altitude restrictions on those, so that makes it easier. But it's important to remember, as just to throw it out there, because that happens on a regular basis, is you'll get the pilot that filed a flight plan that is planning, say it's a turboprop, it's a Dash 8Q 400 planning coming into Calgary, and they filed the IGWEB 4 or IGWEB 5 arrival in this case. One of the things that we need to make sure that we do, and that we point that out to the pilot, is that their flight plan needs to be amended, because if it is a turboprop, it should not come down into Calgary through the IGWEB. That should be through the FLAM arrival. And the same with the other ones. And the more we do so, the more that pilots will continue to understand, a virtual pilot that is, understand that there is a difference and they need to file the correct arrival depending on the aircraft type. And the reason behind, for the most part, most of the virtual pilots are not getting the proper star for turboprops, is because the systems out there, if it is even, I use SimBrief myself when I fly online, and it's kind of a default thing that they will use. It doesn't really matter what aircraft type you indicate. It will always carry kind of the jet aircraft stars. So the pilot needs to be aware of what are those differences. But if they don't, that's where we step in. That's part of what we do, just to throw it out there, letting them know, giving them the heads up. With that, hopefully next time they come in, they will already know, and if not, we'll repeat it again, and that's part of our job, I guess. So anyway, I have already marked the ones that I want to show, and I'm going to hit apply. And then you see a whole bunch of information there. So for the most part, well, that's not what I wanted to do, obviously. So let me correct this, because this is a good way of showing what to do when you do the wrong thing. So I obviously activated the one for the runway 11, runway 29er. I don't want that. I only wanted the ones for 17. So I'm just going to clean that up slightly, and apologies for that. We would say I had this planned to show you how to correct your own mistakes, I guess, but no, that wasn't the case. I messed it up. So I'm just taking those guys out. I don't want the 11s, the 29ers or 35s, and apply. Okay, that's better. Okay, so a few things here. So you'll see this is very useful. Yes, you have the charts, depending on what you have, the JPSN or flight plan, whatever you use. But here it allows you to have on your scope the altitude, the crossing restrictions per each one of the stars. And very quickly here, what that means, of course, is that on advox, and this is what I wanted to explain briefly, you'll see this, and this means below 14,000, and then the P is for turboprops or propeller aircrafts. Then that being the case, what this is telling you is that at this point at advox, therefore the FLAM arrival is asking turboprops to cross advox below 12,000. And if you're not a turboprop, this is the number that applies. So if you're a jet aircraft, below 14,000. If you're a turboprop, below 12,000. The restriction at FLAM only has one number. What this means is that doesn't matter. The plates do not have are not exclusive. Rather, the restriction at FLAM is the same for both type of aircraft. So it doesn't matter if you're a jet aircraft or a turboprop, you're going to have to cross FLAM above 8,000. That's what that means. And as you approach or go down through LEXOC, this is one of the changes, recent changes, and as you can see, I added a J there just to emphasize that yes, it's just one number, but this only applies for jet aircraft. So jet aircraft need to cross LEXOC at 9,000. That is their crossing restriction, and this is a new crossing restriction. It wasn't there before. This is one of the main changes on this latest release of the AIRAC 1905, and they have done pretty much the same following this with all other starts for all other arrivals into Calgary, and I'll go through that quickly here. So again, just giving you a visual cue. Sometimes you get the question from the pilot, sometimes you want to make sure that they are descending on the star. That's part of the trickiest part of controlling approaches into the major airports, into our FIR, so that's what that means. So interestingly enough, so with this, truly, if you take a look at that, what is happening here is that if you have a turboprop, they need to cross adbox at below 12,000, they need to cross FLAM above 8,000. But if you're a turboprop, that's about it. And to me, that's very useful, because then it makes it very, or easier, not significantly easier, but more efficient, perhaps is the word I'm looking for. More efficient, because what is happening here is that if I have a turboprop that already crossed FLAM, and I don't have anything else on the airspace that I'm controlling, then I can take that guy down as low as I can, say 6,500, and get him very low here, and get him into the final approach into Calgary, as you see fit. Before, if you remember, you don't need to, but just for a little bit of background history there, before the restrictions on this starts were mainly around here. They were asking you to get them to 7,500 either at Upton or SEPSO, and that was applied for most of them, including something similar like the one you're seeing here, which we will go through later on. But anyway, that's what that means. If you're a jet aircraft, therefore, you need to cross adbox at below 14,000, you need to cross FLAM above 8,000, and you need to cross LEXOC at 9,000. That is your crossing restriction if you are a jet aircraft. And then after that, in the same token, you see there are no further altitude restrictions on that star. So giving us controllers the possibility of taking that aircraft down as low as we need to within the MSA for the area, which for the most part is 6,500 now at this when you're approaching this area here. But that's what is happening there, and it is pretty much the same on all other ones. As you can see, this is for the BIRCO and tow tube arrivals, the same. So a jet aircraft will have to cross BIRCO below 15,000. If you're a turboprop, you need to cross below 12,000. Then as you come into tow tube, you'll see again it's the restriction. They need jet aircraft only need to cross tow tube at 9,000. And there is a restriction here for turboprops. In this case, turboprops need to cross LSOG at above 7,500. Same applies for the other guys. It's the same. Just quickly, restriction for jet aircraft, restriction for turboprop as they go down on the EPGAL or TIDOC arrivals. They both have the restriction at MUPUV 8,000. They need to cross at 8,000. And IGBEP and PESGA arrivals. I added a couple of things that we didn't have there before, but that's pretty much what that is. So once I'm satisfied with what I have displayed on the SAR for approach, I click apply as I did before, then I click OK. And then before I leave, I can either just come here and click save. It will save all the changes I did. If you do that, that's the easiest part of it all, or the best way of doing it. If you forgot on doing so and say you are closing the gyroscope altogether or you're closing this ASR, then it will prompt you. And sometimes we tend to overlook this window here, but it's important, because if not, next time you go back in, you realize that you lost all the changes that you wanted to implement. So this is only giving you the summary of the changes you did for this specific ASR, in this case for the 17s, and allowing you to quickly check what happened. Well, you're displaying an element, you ended up hiding an element, and it tells you which element that is, the free text for Calgary, so on and so forth. So it allows you to quickly take a look at what you did. If you don't want something to be implemented, you just remove it or check it, remove it or check it. No, I didn't want that. Yes, I want to save this and that. In my case, I want to save it all, so I make sure that yes, this is what I want for this ASR. I click save, and then it's saved, and that is closed. And that's pretty much it. So you would have to do the same. I'll show you quickly. If I go to the 3.5's combination, it will prompt me in the same, because it's the first time I open up this ASR after the updating the AIRAC, the sector file. So I click yes, it takes me in, and guess what, it's exactly the same. So I'll go through the editing process by displaying the dialog display settings dialog box, activating what I want to activate, and then after that just saving it and closing it, and so on and so forth. So quickly, so this was meant to show you some of the recent changes. We have now Advox 7, we have Birko 4, EBGAL 5, and IGWeb 5 into Calgary. And as far as turboprops is concerned, we have the FLAM 6, we have the TTUC 5, TOTUB 4, and VESGA 5, those being some of the main changes that were implemented for our aerospace on this latest release of the AIRAC, already in our sector file. So any questions, feel free to drop me a note through the usual channels. The Edmonton FIR forum on the VATCAN forums is a great way of communicating, relaying to us your questions in regards to updates to the sector file. I'll be more than glad to help you out. Okay, everybody,